One of the things I wanted to just mention off the top was, one of the panels that we'll have a little bit later today will be on Indigenous voices. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure of is that we acknowledge today that we're gathered today. We gather together on the traditional land of the Nisenan, Maidu, Miwok, Costanoan, Northern Valley Yokuts, and Patwin peoples, past and present. And we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing how to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit through the work of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area, the Delta Heritage Forum, and other heritage efforts on the local, regional, and state level. So I just wanted to at least recognize that and acknowledge the importance of the peoples who have been here for a very long time and recognize their presence here. So with that, I think I'd like to at least start out with a discussion about the National Heritage Area. I'm really excited about this panel because it's not only a chance for us to talk about the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area, but also hear from other national heritage areas across the country. And I really want to thank Kathleen and Sarah Capon for attending, and also from Linda Stonier, who is our regional coordinator with the National Park Service. So, so I will introduce them in a moment, but I at least wanted to talk briefly about the National Heritage Area, what's going on with it right now, and just get some thoughts on on just at least let you know what we have planned in terms of the next time coming up. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. This is, what I wanted to do is to provide a brief presentation on the National Heritage Area and what's going on with that. One of the things I wanted to just mention, and this is a slide that I borrowed from Linda Stonier a little while ago, was sort of what the cycle of a national heritage area is and how are they created, how do they keep continuing over time. The feasibility study is really the first start in terms of the National Heritage Area. And that's really identifying whether this is something that is feasible, whether this is something that can easily get off the ground, and whether it's an area that's worth celebrating on a national scale. The next thing that happens after a National Heritage Area is created is that you have a management plan. And so that is the process that we're going through right now. The management plan really is supposed to define what's going on over the next 10 or 15 years and identify sort of what kind of national heritage area you want to be. Once the National Heritage Area management plan is finished, then you move on to implementation and project planning, kind of doing the work of a National Heritage Area. And then after about 15 years, then you do an evaluation, sort of determine where you are and what steps you want to change. And then from there, you can go and redo the management plan or update the management plan as necessary. So just to give you a little heads up on where we've been as a National Heritage Area. In 2012, our feasibility study was finalized. That was done before my time. Alex Westhoff was my predecessor, and he did a great job in putting together that feasibility study. Then last March, the John Dingell Conservation Management and Resources Act was passed. That established our National Heritage Area, and it also established 4 other National Heritage Areas as well, 2 in Washington State, 1 in Pennsylvania, and 1 in West Virginia. So you might have seen this, but I just wanted to show this again. These are the boundaries of the National Heritage Area. If anyone is familiar with the legal Delta boundaries, or the boundaries of that are traditionally considered the Delta, it's a little bit different than that, but it definitely follows a very similar path. And so the boundaries really go from the Yolo bypass up towards Woodland, all the way down to Lathrop and Manteca, and then out to Vallejo and Hercules area. So it's a very large area, very diverse area in terms of the types of stories that we can tell. Sorry. Um, just in terms of the work that we've done so far, even though we've only become a National Heritage Area recently, we've been doing a lot of work and related to heritage. Some of the things that are related, I won't really talk about this too much, but we've focused on Asian Pacific Islander heritage within the Delta. We have been doing work on a Delta anthology, which will tell stories about kind of bring together literature of the Delta. Community action planning has been work that we've done within the small rural areas of the Delta. Um, the Delta Heritage Forum, obviously you're attending that today. Delta Narratives and Curriculum, that was really a great effort by Bob Benedetti and Margaret Aramburu and several, not just scholars, but also museums and historical societies throughout the Delta to kind of put together academic research on the Delta, tell the narratives of what's happened over the area. And we were able to put this together as a fourth grade curriculum. The Delta Trail Master Plan is sort of on pause right now, but we'll be starting that up soon in 2021. And that's really intended to kind of join Sacramento, Stockton, and the Bay Area together through trails. Heritage projects feasibility studies. Those were done just to kind of get some projects off the ground. Sign plan and sign placement. This is work that we've been doing actively, and hopefully we'll be able to get up some signs soon that will introduce people to the National Heritage Area. And then also visit cadelta.com. This is a great effort that we've been doing, kind of marketing the Delta for throughout the area. So what will or what is the Delta Protection Commission doing? We have several responsibilities as being the local coordinating entity for the National Heritage Area. One is to develop the management plan, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Public outreach during and after the planning process. So we want to have public outreach throughout the time that we're a National Heritage Area. This is not just during the management plan itself. We will assist governments, nonprofits, and others in implementing the plan, and then we'll submit annual reports to the Secretary of Interior. So what goes into a management plan? First of all, there are policies, strategies, and recommendations that will sort of guide what we're doing as a National Heritage Area and really provide sort of the basic framework for what we're doing. The resource inventory, as you could probably imagine, really identifies different resources and lots of different types of resources throughout the area. The interpretive plan, this is an important step. Really, it defines what stories we are going to be telling and what things are we going to be focusing on. And then an implementation and funding program. This is really sort of the getting into the details about how are we going to get these things done. So the feasibility study identified 5 different interpretive themes, the 5 different stories that we anticipated that we're going to tell. We're not necessarily reliant on these 5 stories. In fact, they might be changed a little bit as we go through the management plan process. But at least it might give you a sense of the kind of stories that we might be telling. The first one really deals with the Delta itself, the geography of the Delta, the importance of it as a river water highway over the years, its importance to natural resources. The second one deals with the conversion of the Delta from marshland to farmland, which was really a big effort and required the invention of a lot of new information, such as a lot of new things, such as the Caterpillar tractor. Multicultural contributions and experiences. Obviously, this is very important. There are so many different cultures that have gone through the Delta at some point, and so we want to celebrate those different cultures. Obviously, agriculture is a very important part of the area. And so we want to celebrate the importance of the area in terms of all different types of crops. And then finally, and probably one of the more controversial one, is water resources and just the challenges that we face due to the importance of the Delta in sort of the plumbing of the California, the state of California. So basically the interpretive plan components will include sort of defining what's existing in terms of what stories are now being told, what are the opportunities, challenges, and goals that will be going forward, and then primary and secondary themes. So, you know, we have these big themes, and then what are the smaller themes that might go underneath that. And so one of the people that is attending today is Katie Metro with California State Parks. She and State Parks will be assisting us with putting together an interpretive plan. So here's the schedule right now. This fall, we are forming the advisory committee, the National Heritage Area Management Plan Advisory Committee. We just had the deadline for applications just a few days ago, and we anticipate at our November 19th commission meeting having the commission sort of sign off on the new committee members. We will also be having the interpretive plan kickoff, so we'll be working with state parks on starting to work on that. So 2021 will be a big year. We anticipate having advisory committee and task group meetings. So the advisory committee will be sort of the overarching public outreach process for the management plan, but also the task groups will focus on specific aspects such as the resource inventory or the interpretive plan. We will be doing outreach to partners in the public in many different ways. And so I anticipate that I will be visiting a lot of you and talking to a lot of you over the time, over the next year or so. And then we'll be developing management plan components, including the interpretive plan and alternatives. And alternatives is a good thing to think about because really what we're trying to figure out is what kind of national heritage area we're going to be. And so I think the next speakers will be able to talk to you a little bit about what aspects are different about some national heritage areas. In 2022, will really be kind of the wrap up, hopefully, putting together the management plan components, compiling it into something that the commission can look at, submitting it to the National Park Service, and hopefully approval by the Secretary of Interior. Once we do that, then we can start implementing the plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Linda Stonier. Hopefully, Linda, you can unmute yourself.
I can, and let's see, I started to, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
And just a moment, I'm gonna get your,
yeah.
I'm gonna get your presentation up.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, I want to say hello from the National Park Service. I'm delighted to be here today and want to just convey the gratitude, I guess, for the privilege of being able to work on the Delta, Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area as one of the regional coordinators for the program. I did actually work with Alex on the feasibility study, so I was thrilled when the designation took place, and I'll offer my congratulations to this group. I think I've done this before, but to the Delta Protection Commission and to all the residents of the Delta, and just say good job for acting like a heritage area all those years while your delegation worked to get you designated. So today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the National Heritage Area Program, what it is and what the Park Service role is. Then I'm going to do a kind of a flyover, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the heritage areas geographically and also thematically. And you'll see how the Delta fits into kind of the national thread of those. And then I'm going to share my observations on the focus and activities of the heritage areas at a national level, including how those have evolved over time. So Blake, can we go to the next one? I always like to start with the definition, kind of the official definition of the heritage area, even though it's kind of wordy. I actually think it's quite good and quite accurate. And as I flew over the heritage areas online, I neglected to mention that each of the areas has a website, and you can go visit them virtually. And it's actually quite fun and interesting and educational to do that. They do reflect this definition of a national heritage area, which is a place designated by Congress, as we know, where natural, cultural, historic, and scenic resources combine to form a cohesive, nationally distinctive landscape arising from patterns of human activity shaped by geography. And that's actually a key phrase. And then these patterns make NHAs representative of the national experience. And that's what we look for when we're trying to decide whether a feasibility study meets that threshold through the physical features that remain and the traditions that have evolved in them. And this is key too, because it differentiates the heritage areas from national park units in the sense that continued use of national heritage areas by people whose traditions help to shape the landscape enhances their significance. And so let's go to the next slide. And I found this to be really, as I said, true of I didn't go to all 55 national heritage areas in 34 states, but I did sample several in each of the regions. There's a new one, by the way, Blake. There's also a new one in the Intermountain, and it's in the Santa Cruz Valley, and that's in Colorado. Next slide. So what we do, the National Heritage Area program is administered through the National Park Service. Congress usually appropriates funds that go to the areas for their operation, either planning in the case of our new areas for the most part, or the projects that they do, grant programs, et cetera, for the more mature areas. We distribute that money and then provide the federal oversight to see that its use meets the regulations. We do training and other types of activities to help the areas operate, trainings on interpretation, trainings on sustainability. We provide economic impact reports to help the areas and the program explain it's how it generates economic activity and is therefore value added for the communities where the heritage areas are. And I'm going to share some numbers with you on that point later. And we work with our park units that are in heritage areas to set up, to help facilitate those relationships, which we hope are two-way, that the heritage areas benefit from the parks activities and park cachet that they bring, and vice versa, that the parks benefit from the broader visitation and work that the areas do, kind of planning park beyond park boundaries. And then in some cases where we're actually help facilitate the rangers, I like to tell the story. I'd just like to mention the fact that in our Great Basin National Heritage Area in the region, they actually put rangers on the train, the Northern Nevada Railroad, which is an awesome resource, a National Historic Landmark. And if you're a train buff, you should definitely go visit. Next slide, please. So there are themes, I would say, categories of resources in the heritage areas. You happen to be looking at Bristlecone Pine in the Great in the Great Basin. I would, and this is me talking my observation. I would put those types of resources and associated stories in a variety of themes, which include key historical movements like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, industrialization, arts and culture, distinctive landscapes, such as plant communities like you're seeing, rivers, shoreline, deltas, of which you have one, western landscapes, and agriculture. And then there's several that celebrate Native American homelands and traditions. So let's go through these. Next slide. So here's Rivers of Steel. This is one of those industrial landscapes. Famous steel furnaces here that have been used, that were preserved and now used for a variety of different uses, including some really interesting art. Next. This is in Mississippi. This is actually in Alabama and Mississippi. On the right is the other delta, the Mississippi Delta. And on the left is the Fame Recording Studios. And just a little side note here, I actually just recently spent a month in Alabama and went on a tour for the first time of the Fame Recording Studio in Florence. And it was so exciting. If you're a music buff like I am, to be in the same room where Duane Allman and Aretha Franklin recorded music was truly a thrill. So you can go there and do that. Next slide. This is somewhere in the south. I don't know if this is Atchafalaya, perhaps, obviously in the south in the bayou somewhere. And it's certainly a distinctive landscape, but one of the other things that heritage areas do is enhance recreational opportunities in some of these really, really interesting landscapes. So here you have, go ahead, yeah. I mentioned battlefields. Historic reenactments are a popular way for these types of heritage areas to interpret their landscapes and also to educate their residents and visitors about the history that is so rich in these places. Next. I mentioned education. I think this is Cane River. School programs, I guess you could call this a reenactment. It's certainly a demonstration of some blacksmithy, I suppose. But these are really, again, types of programs, really, really important, popular, and again, some of the way that visitors and residents alike enjoy these areas and are funded by the heritage areas themselves with grants. Hi, Matt. Go ahead. Next slide. This is Northern Rio Grande or Grande. I mentioned arts and culture, festivals, and the celebration of Native peoples who still live there and practice their traditions. This particular heritage area does a lot, and it of course has this very distinctive architecture. And you have the opportunity to be immersed in these cultures and be thrilled by the excitement of them, but also learn a lot. Next slide. Music certainly is one of the arts and cultural activities or assets, or you might even say, for for many of the areas, especially in the southeast, I think this might be in the Blue Ridge where there's a music trail. Again, I just mentioned the Muscle Shoals area where the famed studios are located. So you can make a whole vacation out of immersing yourself in these musical traditions when you visit one of these areas. And in Blue Ridge, they actually have an itinerary you can follow. Next slide. This is true the Mississippi Delta too, which is, I'll just put in a plug for their BBK museum, which is awesome. And finally, foodways, well, not finally, but foodways. And I think you're going to hear about that in the Delta too, are, I mean, they're kind of both a feature of the landscape, certainly in the agricultural areas, silos and smokestacks, and up in New York, Hudson Valley, for example, so they're both part of the landscape that define landscape, but they're also economic, part of the ways in which the heritage areas carry out economic activity, share their culture, and also help the economic activity of their partners within the heritage area. Next. So I guess that's it. In terms of my photographs, I think I mentioned, I said that I was going to summarize some observations about the types of projects and activities. And I think I've done that. Preservation of historic structures, heritage tourism. I didn't mention community development, but that isn't actually an important activity that heritage areas carry out. It brings to mind, and that includes Main Street programs, that brings to mind areas like Baltimore and Wheeling, West Virginia. What else? Maybe some of our other heritage, maybe Sarah will talk about that. Yuma Crossing, where they did some redevelopment in downtown. Interpretation and education, I mentioned. This includes research. So for example, such as oral histories. I know in the Great Basin, they've been over time collecting stories of the old sheep herders. And I know in the Northern Plains, they do archaeological research on the extensive Native American, Mandan and Arikara areas that are still extant, but also have a lot to say about the people who lived there before. And I guess I know I'm not sure who's keeping time on me here, but I don't want to go on too long. I will just mention the importance of the management plan that Blake talked about, because it's a balancing act. We and the Park Service expect the areas to follow their management plans. It's the way for them to establish their priorities and spend their federal money when that comes. But we also have noticed and recognized that sometimes the activities change over time. So for example, in some of the areas where preservation of historic properties might have been key at the outset, as those areas do get preserved and people start visiting them, then sometimes recreation becomes more urgent, not urgent, but more important, so that there are ways for people to access these assets, and also there are other reasons for people to stay in the heritage areas, learn about other things, and spend their money. And the changes over time also have to do with where the money comes from. So our Katie Durkin, one of our national coordinators, was observing to me this week that some of the funding sources over time have trended more toward recreation, alternative transportation. So we see a lot of trail building. So I'm getting a note from Blake to wrap it up. I was going to give you some by the numbers for 2019. I won't go through all of them, but let's just say there was $904,000 was spent in the heritage areas on historic preservation. There were 104 projects that in community development that included streetscapes and public art. There were 95 new trail miles funded and 567 trail miles maintained, and $2.1 million in grants went to educational programs. So you get to see in kind of a snapshot the in both numbers and types of projects in dollars, kind of the scale of the way the heritage areas are making progress and investing in their communities. So I guess I'll wrap it up that way. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Linda, for giving a kind of overview of the program. So I wanted to pass it to Sarah Capon with Niagara Falls National Heritage Area, and she is also the president of the Alliance of National Heritage Areas.
Great. I
think someone needs to mute. Okay, is that better?
So I'm off mute. Is that good?
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, and so I'm also not able to access my video. Blake, do you want me to access my video for a moment?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on that right now. So here we go. Okay.
Well, I'm happy to go ahead and get started. I'm going to, just want to do a thank you for the invitation to join today. And on behalf of the Alliance of National Heritage Areas, I want to express my gratitude to Delta for being a member for quite a few years now. And so I'm going to present on both the Alliance of National Heritage Areas and Niagara Falls National Heritage Area today. So I know that on the screen, you see interpretation, which is going to pertain to many heritage areas, but certainly to Niagara Falls as well. But I'm going to talk about the Alliance for just a moment here. So the Alliance of National Heritage Areas is an organization. This was founded quite some time ago. I'm fortunate enough to be the chair of that organization, and we have 50 of the 55 national heritage areas that are members of it today, with 7 emerging national heritage areas that are also members. And we work together in a unified form to not only provide technical assistance, but to share resources for entities that are going through those 4 phases that Blake shared. So whether it's the feasibility study, whether it's the management plan, whether it is implementing the projects within your management plan, whether it's evaluation, we have heritage areas that are at all those stages. And some, they have gone that full cycle. And this organization provides the opportunity to be connected to them so that oftentimes you don't have to rely on inventing the wheel from scratch, that there's entities out there that are doing this work that you can lean on and learn from, and also share what you're doing. On the national level, what we also do is inform and educate our congressional partners about our needs. What does this program need? And so our 3 pillars under advocacy and education include advocating for a standard program bill. And we are just ending a cycle where we introduced what was HR 1049 in the House of Representatives in 2019. We've ended that with 230 co-sponsors, and that's going to provide a unified and uniform program that would put us all housed together under one umbrella with a 15-year reauthorization window. So fortunately for you, you were just authorized. So as you continue to go along your journey, you're going to realize very quickly that 15 years goes by like a blink, and you're going to be at the point where you're going to maybe need some help in being reauthorized. And this is where we have 32 national heritage areas presently. But we work to make sure that that happens. In the case of your authorization and with your fellow 5 national heritage areas that were authorized under the John Dingell Act, we advocated through a letter of support with Senator Murkowski, who was the lead behind that public lands bill, for the emerging national heritage areas. And as Linda mentioned, that included not just Sacramento to San Joaquin, but included 5 additional ones as well. We also provided a lot of internal support to those emerging national heritage areas. And certainly one of our longstanding members, Phyllis Baxter from Appalachia Forest, led a lot of work sessions that kept that group together. And then we're able to share information not only with each other, but also with me and the officers of the Alliance that continue to advocate to make sure that everybody was included in the John Dingell Act. So we worked really strongly together, particularly at the DC level, to make sure that we have appropriations. Unfortunately, our program is often targeted to have appropriations either reduced in half or fully eliminated. And so we work as one system with our congressional members to make sure that appropriations are restored each year. And we've been successful over the course of the last 5-6 years of being able to get full restoration of those funds, and also in the last 3 years, an increase in that funding. So one of the other advantages to being a member of the Alliance is that we offer opportunities outside of COVID years to be able to visit national heritage areas and attend our membership meetings. There's one in the spring, there's one in the fall. And certainly Linda's been to lots of them. And you can see just from her beautiful pictures, all of the places that she has visited through her work. But those meetings give an opportunity to really get a hands-on understanding of what happens in other national heritage areas. So it's an opportunity to grow, it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to be inspired, and it's an opportunity to connect to other people who are doing this work. So the Alliance, I feel, is very, very special. I can share with Blake the Alliance website. It's another resource where you can go and see where all the national heritage areas are, and then be connected to those individual websites. But we do have quite a bit of work going into 2021. And just because we have 32 national heritage areas sunsetting. But we are thankful for your support, and we look forward to working with you, especially as you go through the management plan, to learn more about the work that you're need to come up, that we are there to be able to support you in what those needs are. So that's a little bit about the Alliance. So, like, I don't know if I'm able to turn on my video or not.
You should. There should be
Okay.
that capability.
Okay, so it just says that the host has disabled it. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Sorry about that. I didn't know.
It's okay. I just want to show you. Oh, it still says disabled.
Okay, I'm trying to get you. Why am I not able to do this? I will see what I can do. Sorry.
You could keep working on it. I just wanted to show everybody a pitch. I have my management plan in front of me, and my board laughs at me quite a bit because my management plan cover has just fallen off. It's rubber banded. It's, almost duct taped together because it's such a great plan. And I know that it takes a lot of work to go through that management plan process, but just want to say how much it is worth it. And I'm sure that Linda has seen many plans like that as well, but I was just going to hold up my management plan for folks to see. But I'll continue onwards. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area for a little bit. We were authorized in 2008. So where we are at is we're approaching the end of our 15 years. We're starting our evaluation actually this month. Those 15 years have gone by super, super quick. But, I go back to these pillars, and Linda touched on a lot of those pillars. But I want to just drill down a little bit to the ones that we focus on probably the most at Niagara Falls National Heritage Area, with the first one being interpretation. And so interpretation is, telling and sharing our stories. And we actually have 5 identified stories in the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area, with one of those themes being borders and borderland crossing, which has 6 subcategories. So that's a lot of storytelling. And so that interpretation and how we tell our stories is and you turn it into projects. So interpretation is one of our pillars to the work that we do. This is one of the representative projects that we implemented. And this picture is of the Niagara Falls Underground Heritage Center, which we opened in 2018. It is dedicated to telling the story of the Underground Railroad, specifically through the voice and lens of freedom seekers, people who were in the South who escaped slavery through self-emancipation, came to Niagara Falls, got to the Niagara River, and realized that it was one more river to cross to freedom, being on that border with Canada. And so it was really important for us to look at that lens of interpretation and say, well, traditionally, how has the Underground Railroad story been told? What has been missing? And so for us, it was really the opportunity to focus on the voices of the freedom seekers themselves, and the people in Niagara Falls, specifically African-American waiters who worked in Niagara Falls hotels, who aided people escaping slavery into freedom by crossing the Niagara River. And so this project also emphasizes, I think, an important role of that community engagement, which Linda touched on, is being able to include the community in the telling of the story, that it's a community-driven process, that it's not from the top down, that it grows from the bottom up. And so one of the benefits of the Underground Railroad Heritage Center is that any resident in the city of Niagara Falls has a lifetime membership for free to the Heritage Center. We have a poverty rate in Niagara Falls, in the city of Niagara Falls, of close to 50%. And this is a story that hasn't been told. And this is a story that is deeply personal and connected in our African-American community. And we tell the story to the point that it doesn't end with the 13th Amendment, that we go on and we talk about the legacy of slavery in community today, and in our country today. And so, interpretation is really embodies so much more than just the historical facts, embodies relevancy and embodies the connection to people today, and the connection that, history may seem long ago and far away, but it's very much present in a lot of the actions that we see in our communities today. And so this is an example of how we took that interpretation pillar, the pillar of our organization, interpretation, and turned it into a project that continues to grow and resonate, and has received many awards for the permanent exhibit there. Blake, you can go to the next slide, if you don't mind. So education, once again, Linda touched on this. Education is a pillar of our organization. This is in a picture of Old Fort Niagara. Old Fort Niagara is a 400-year-old original fort that's located at the mouth of the Niagara River, connecting two Great Lakes, Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. It started off as Haudenosaunee land. The French came in and built a castle. It's an original, it still stands, the original castle stands today. The French called it a castle so that they could get the rights from the Seneca Nation to have a settlement there. What it actually was a fort that switched hands many times. One of the strongest points of our education program is our connection to over 56 school districts in the area. So this program actually started off as a pilot program with one grade, the fourth graders at Niagara Falls City School District, that came to Fort Niagara. That was 500 kids. Today, it's grown to 56 school districts. We service almost 4,000 students a year by offering free field trips to Fort Niagara in the month of October. That includes transportation. We realized after the first year that 86% of the kids in the city of Niagara Falls had never been to Old Fort Niagara, and it's only 12 miles away. So we realized that there was a tremendous need. Old Fort Niagara, which you will realize as you continue with your work, is a great partner. It's a great example of a partner. So they outfit Old Fort Niagara with about 36 volunteers, 36 to 50 volunteers a week when we're running this program, and have close to 16 different interactive workshops for students to participate in. And so education is a pillar, and the program, actually Fall Frontier Days, is the project that we implemented that continues to grow today. It attracts new partners. New York State Parks came in as an additional partner that provides all the transportation costs. And so as you continue to grow, and as Linda indicated so well, is that projects evolve and change, and different funding emerges because you might find that you need to start the project, and you might have to be the seed money, but others will join in once it is built and it becomes successful. And I think that this is an example of a program like that. Next slide, please. So another pillar is economic development. This is a slide of a pretty ambitious project that we undertook here in Niagara Falls. This is an image of our Discover Niagara shuttle. Our Discover Niagara shuttle began operations in 2016. We have 4 vehicles in our fleet. It travels the entire length of our National Heritage Area, which is only 13 miles. But stops at 17 stops along the way. It's a free shuttle that was supported by close to a dozen different partners financially, and it has generated close to 150,000 riders over those past 4 years. And the economic impact of that has been almost $25 million in revenue throughout Niagara County and Niagara Falls. So a little background about Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is, a worldwide icon. It's a world wonder. We get close to 7 million, outside of COVID, we get close to 7 million visitors a year. But one of the biggest challenges we had was that people didn't leave the state park where Niagara Falls is located. And so this effort of the shuttle, which is in our management plan, was identified almost 4 decades ago, that there was a need for transportation to move people around to our other cultural, natural, and historic assets within the region. And so when the National Heritage Area was authorized and became a solid organization, we were able to bring all the partners to the table to say, how can we make this happen? And so I'm really, quite pleased that we're going into 2021, 5 years later, with a pretty significant transportation system that not only has benefited tourism and economic development, but for people who live in our communities that don't have transportation, it's allowed them to connect to our cultural assets. It's allowed them to get to medical appointments. It's allowed them to get to grocery stores. And so that's become a significant pillar of our organization. So I know Blake's giving me the red flag to wrap it up. I just have one more and I can wrap that up in 30 seconds. So Blake, if you don't mind moving forward. So the last pillar is placemaking. And this is an example of another ambitious project that is our mural project. This is the second phase of our mural project. This one was just completed last week. This is done in connection with our African-American community that neighbors this area, who identified the stories that they want to tell and they want to feature that have been overlooked in the community for decades. So this mural itself is of Pop Warner, who was a boxer in Niagara Falls, who many people had forgotten. And through our work and work with the community, we've brought him back out into the public and restored a sense of pride. And I think that's really important when you talk about the role of National Heritage Areas. It's instilling pride in the community. And we work very closely with African-American artists that were selected by the community to be the muralists. And so once again, There's going to be lots of conversations about the work that National Heritage Areas do. I think you've seen a couple examples here today, and the Alliance is a general resource that connects you to 55 other National Heritage Areas that share many of the work. So, all right, thank you. Oh, here's the video, everybody, or here's my management plan. I don't know if you could see it.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So Kathleen, we're going to shift you over as the presenter.
Okay.
Hopefully, are you able to share your
You have
screen.
your screen shared right now, Blake.
Okay, I will stop the share. Okay, there you go.
Okay, let's see if we can't get this up here.
There you are.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Okay. So my name's Kathleen Benedict. I'm the Executive Director of the Cache-la-Poudre River National Heritage Area. And I also would like to say thank you for letting me come here and speak about my favorite subject, which is Colorado's National Heritage Area, the Cache-la-Poudre River. There are 3 heritage areas in Colorado. This one, the Cache-la-Poudre River, is up in the northern part of the state. And then there are also Sangre de Cristo, which is down in the very southern part. And then, let's see, it's not letting me move the screen. So let's see, maybe we can, there we go. Sangre de Cristo, which is in the southern part, and South Park, which is in the western part of Colorado. So we are one of the states that does have multiple national heritage areas within it. I'm currently the executive director of the Poudre Heritage Alliance, which is our 501c3 that manages the Cache-la-Poudre River. What I have up for you now is the map of our heritage area. It's about 45 miles along the river from where it leaves the mountains until it reaches the confluence with the South Platte River. When it enters the mountains on the far side over at Roosevelt National Forest, which has mostly been burned up right now, in case you weren't watching the news, it turns into the wild and scenic Cache-la-Poudre River, which is the only wild and scenic river in Colorado as well. So the Poudre Heritage Alliance is the, as I said, the 501c3 managing entity of the Cache-la-Poudre River Heritage Area. It's made up of a board of directors that represent the 2 counties that are within the heritage area, as well as multiple cities and towns, ranging from very small with no stoplights to very larger, such as the city of Fort Collins, that's a little over 200,000. We also have a couple water conservancy districts, some educational facilities, and several private interest directors at large. We try to keep the board very diverse in a multitude of ways. One thing that you might know about our particular area is that the Cache-la-Poudre River National Heritage Area was designated for the opportunities to educate people on our central theme, which is Western water law. And when you talk about 2 different counties that are very distinctly different, one being very urbanized, they tend to use the river more for recreational and natural environment, as natural as it gets within an urban city corridor, to the other county, which is mainly rural and agricultural with smaller towns. The largest city is the city of Greeley on that side. So we have a vision to support the education of the central theme of Western water law, as well as keeping the environment, the wildlife, and the scenery. and supporting all of this through facilities, trails, visitor centers, and interpretive exhibits. This is our vision. And of course, the mission, and I'm going to go fairly fast through these, is basically the same, how we're going to do it. So I wanted to get into that really quickly about how we try to make these things happen at the cache. And we base everything on our management plan as well. Mine's not quite as rough as Sarah's, although it does have a lot of little tabs in it and that sort of thing. We have 4 goals within our management plan. The first one, organizational capacity. That includes resources and implementing the plans and the partner liaisons and building those partnerships. And honestly, I look at this one as our people. This is how we get anything done. So this includes my staff of 3 and all of our efforts to build partnerships across the heritage area to preserve both on paper, through video, and also on the ground, everything about the National Heritage Area. Our second goal, storytelling, tends to be to facilitate the education about our programs and grants that we put out there, to develop interpretation, literally on the ground signs and brochures and information such as that, as well as collaborating with educational facilities. I listed 3 of our current programs under that. Lifting Voices from the Shadows is actually with our Native American tribal representatives throughout the region, and we're telling the story of the 19th Voting Amendment from the woman Native American point of view. We're doing all of this virtually due to COVID, although we used to be able to go and actually have communications with the Northern Arapaho tribe, who are pictured in this slide here, when they were sent from Colorado to the Wind River Reservation. And so we reach out to multi-state jurisdictions to reach our Native fellows. We also have Water Legacy, which is documenting the history of water law and how it's managed legitimately in the state today. So these are the water and district conservancy districts, and folks who are getting ready to retire. We're documenting their stories about how they manage water in Colorado, and specifically along the cache. We're doing this with Colorado State University. And then the last one is our solo field trips program. This one was modified from our Learning in Our Watershed program. This one is bringing children to the heritage area during COVID, when they can go out on their own or with their parents rather than in a school bus on a field trip. And it's following the state curriculum here in Colorado, so that the teachers are the ones signing up and asking the kids to do this as part of their work virtually. Our next goal is balancing preservation of rights of property, private property, with preservation, facilitating partnerships, especially in times of change, as well as public access. In this case, I put down Play It Safe. This is an initiative that was with our fire departments and the city of Fort Collins, as well as private landowners, to designate the safest places to be able to have public access to the Cache la Poudre River, and create a signage system for those that are recreating within the river. Because of our diversion structures for the agricultural use of water and municipal use of water all the way through the heritage area, there are several areas that are not safe for recreation. And so Play It Safe is a community outreach program, as well as a signage program, to help blend the 2 uses of water use for agriculture and municipal with the use of the river for recreation in a safe way. Last but not least is our tourism. This is our economic development programs. We have Heritage Culturalists, which are our 34 some volunteers that we utilize. Like I said, I only have a staff of 3, so I need a lot of volunteers to help get out there and make these programs happen. It also works in promoting the destination of the heritage area for tours, both with Heritage Journey, which is a virtual online tour type program that we run, as well as the Heritage Trail itself, where we're developing the points of interest along the heritage area with the folks that are running those points of interest. And then we put them all onto an interactive mapping system on our website so people can come to our area and select which ones are of interest to them and be able to go and take a tour of that area. So these all kind of come together to promote historical and cultural opportunities, to engage people in the river corridor themselves, and to inspire learning, preservation, and stewardship overall. These all kind of came to fruition with our economic development program that we did in, I'm stopping my share there for you. Did that work? Are y'all there?
Sorry, I just found my mute button. Yes, you just stopped.
Okay, so I stopped my share, and I just wanted to tell you that we did an economic impact study for the Cashlaputa River, that how we implemented our management plan with some of these programs and efforts. From 2014 through 2016, we had 81.6 million in economic impact in our small community, 1,067 new jobs developed, and 6.9 million in tax revenue. So taking your funding from the National Park Service, as well as developing funding through your partnerships in the community, has a very large return for the National Heritage Area in our mission to promote and engage and inspire people. So there you go. I'm gonna stop right there.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. I sure appreciate your discussion about Cashlaputa. So I know that we're a little over right now, but I know that there's some questions out there, and so I wanted to at least I can answer some of the questions that were more directed towards the NHA, the Delta NHA, and then I know that there's at least one question that was for Kathleen. So I'll answer those questions first, and then we can move on to Kathleen. So one of the questions from Tom Schlosser was, to what extent will the stories describe Native American presence and usage of the Delta? We definitely anticipate that that's going to be something we want to explore more, and so that's part of the reason why we're really trying to reach out to the tribes and make sure that those stories are being heard. Another question was regarding the advisory committee. And the advisory committee will discuss the National Heritage Area, and one of the things that will be explored through that process is whether we want to revise the boundaries at all to include other parts of the area. For example, right now, Stockton, the city of Stockton, and the city of Sacramento are not included in the National Heritage Area. So that might be something that we want to talk about during the management plan process, just to see if there's any interest in making those parts of the National Heritage Area. Ultimately, though, that has to go, the Congress has to make actual official boundary changes. Another question was regarding adding more National Heritage Areas in California. That might be something, we're the first one in California. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether, whether there's other interest in other areas of California to make their own areas in National Heritage Area. So Kathleen, I might want to, I don't know if you saw there's a few questions down here. One was from David Stewart. It was, isn't the Encampment River and its tributaries Root National Forest also a wild and scenic river?
Actually, the Encampment River up in Riverside, Wyoming, this one,
Let me unmute Dave so I can make sure he's able to respond to that. If I can, I've got too many things going on. So I will see if I can find.
The short
Dave.
answer to that is that I believe the Encampment River is in Wyoming, although it may get down to Colorado at some point. My understanding is that the Cashlaputter is the only, well, it was definitely the first wild and scenic in Colorado, and I think it's the only one.
So David, I just unmuted you, so hopefully you can clarify your question. Okay, I think he's still muted, so maybe one of the other questions was from Bob Benedetti, and this is a question for the entire panel. Do either of these heritage areas work closely with state humanities councils?
So Sarah, maybe you can answer this as well after I do, but we don't work with the State Humanities Council at this point in time at the cache. However, we do work pretty closely with the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as the Colorado Tourism Organization.
And this is Sarah. We work closely with the New York State Council of Humanities, and like Kathleen, the Historic Preservation Office. So there's a lot of partnerships out there. And I would say our closest project to the New York State Council of Humanities is the Underground Railroad Heritage Center.
Thank you. Kathy, one of the things you asked about, Kathy Bunton asked about whether the presentation slides will be accessible to attendees later. We'll have to see about that. Hopefully we can make them accessible in some way. We have, as a state agency, sometimes we have some issues with sharing some presentation. So I'll have to follow up with you about that. Are there any other questions? So one of the things I will do is I can just sort of allow everybody to talk if they, so I'm just going through and allowing people to talk right now. If you just let me know if you have a question through the chat. So any other questions? Okay. Well, so if you, I really appreciate you all being on the panel today. Thank you so much for coming from afar, at least virtually, to be part of the Delta Heritage Forum today.